Amon and the Burning Legion have returned to Azeroth. Sorry, wrong story.
Before we begin, thanks for all the responses to the Kerrigan video. I knew she'd be contentious, but the discussion surprised me. She was divisive when the games first came out, and evidently she's still divisive now. There were good counter-arguments, some of which have changed my callous heart. You'll never convince me she had to go to Calder in the first place, but perhaps I let my biases color my perception of her. Granted, it's a video essay, there'll always be bias, but for Amon and his boys, I'll try to be more impartial. Some folks suggested that it was wrong to see Sarah's journey in Heart of the Swarm as a redemption arc, but instead an arc of purpose. And you're right about one thing, she definitely didn't redeem herself. Perhaps combining gameplay with the story analysis isn't fair. Shouldn't be an issue with Amon, though. Man barely shows up in-game. Some of the feedback wasn't even about Kerrigan. I didn't think my Tau joke was that bad, but for the sake of the greater good, I promise I won't ever use it again. In light of your wise words, I'll move Sarah from D tier to C tier. Mid-character overall, I still like her Brood War self. Anywho, on to the main event. When starting this series, I figured I'd slowly ease into each character, really build it up. Honestly, I put Mr. Space Squid on the pole as a joke. But it seems you maniacs prefer jokes, so it's time for the big shadow god himself. And also Duran and the Hybrid, I wasn't sure if they'd get enough attention on their own. Is it practical to put all of these characters in the same video? Nope. But it's my video, I do what I want. Amon isn't usually well regarded in Starcraft 2. Narud, pretty okay. The Hybrid, they look cool, I guess. But why is that? Why is the big bad stuck at the bottom tiers? We'll go as follows. First the Hybrid, then Duran, and finally Amon. Like last time, I'm just a guy giving his opinions. Feel free to write a 5-page essay as why I'm wrong. I'm ignoring the novels and going off the games unless I say so.
How dare you ignore the novels? The lore is there, whether you like it or not.
Most of the cutscenes will be from other sources because... Actually, I did get a better laptop, but I may as well save time with these downloaded clips. Laziness, am I right, fellas?
Die in the name of Amon.
No, you.
While the concept of assimilating the Protoss first spawned in Episode 2, Protoss-Zerg Hybrid were formally introduced in the secret mission Dark Origins, where Duran revealed he'd seeded them on countless worlds. Back in 1998, their existence was ominous and vaguely malicious.
You will never find them all before they awaken. And when they do, your universe will be changed. Forever.
But Starcraft is a game of factions with different ideologies and viewpoints. The Zerg were initially seen as mindless beasts engineered by the Confederates, only to reveal their true intelligence to us through the Overmind and the Cerebrates. The Conclave saw the Dark Templar as heretics, only to be surprised at their nobility during the fall of Ire. And infested Kerrigan pulled the rug out from everyone repeatedly in Brood War. And change itself can be good, bad, or a little bit of both. So what kind would the Hybrid bring? Timeline-wise, the Hybrid make their first proper appearance on Jakul. A guy named Mars controlling the Preservers and their guards. Well, the actual subtitles just call him Hybrid Protoss. He talks about despair and tries to stop Zeratul from learning about the prophecy. While most of his insults are your standard villain threats about doom and inevitability, they echo an attitude from their master Amon. To him, the Protoss and Zerg aren't complex individuals or factions. They're just tools. Kinda like your average RTS player, huh? In a future vision with Kerrigan dead, entire legions of Hybrid control the swarm to consume the universe. Their master is a guy named Dark Voice, but is later revealed as Amon. On Castanar, it's revealed that Mengsk is breeding them too, with one such creature breaking free and pursuing Raynor and the boys. To Blizzard's credit, I think this makes a good first impression for the Hybrid race. They're intimidating, unstoppable killing machines that outclass anything the Protoss and Terrans can throw at them. Though I do hope we get to meet more distinct, fleshed-out Hybrid characters with more varied personalities. Wait, that's it? In Art of the Swarm, Narud's connection to them is revealed. This was confirmed in Flashpoint, but we're only looking at the game, so it doesn't matter. He's breeding more on Skyger under the guise of helping Mengsk. Several individuals have developed the unique adaptation of inducing headaches to Kerrigan.
Leave me alone!
That's a joke, they're draining her psionic energy. It'd be a real shame if they ever pushed this stick again. I mean, get 20 of these guys and we have no shot. Wait, it only shows up here? Disclaimer, it kinda shows up in a sinister turn when Mars draining the preservers, but otherwise I don't think the hybrid ever really do this again. Stukov and Kerrigan later speculated that the hybrid used the energy taken from her de-infestation to fuel Amon's resurrection. Anywho, more hybrid interfere with Kerrigan's beam war with Narud, I'll get to that later, but it's not until Legacy that they fully emerge from the shadows.
Impossible. Hybrid on Ire.
Not just Ire, buddy. Shakuris, Korhal, not Glacius oddly enough, Ulnar, Cybro, Slain, Revanskar, and Ire again. There's all sorts of interesting designs, including Green Guy, Red Guy, and Squid Guy. I'm kidding, they actually do look kinda cool. Void Thrashers are, just Void Thrashers. I don't think they count. Aside from serving as occasional bosses, their role in the story is mostly to serve as symbols of Amon's hypocrisy and vanity, and material for his new body. He wants to end the Xel'Naga cycle, but also makes a corrupted form of it to his liking. He claims to end all suffering, yet inflicts it through his plans. He cares nothing for any of his followers except the hybrid, and even then, they're only valuable as extensions of him. Beyond that, the hybrid just kind of disappear after the host, presumably having all died off. And I have to say, a common criticism of the hybrid is that they're basically the Burning Legion from Warcraft, just a vague evil threat that makes the heroes unite to stop it. Of course, since I played Starcraft 2 first, this wasn't as big an issue for me. My real issue is that they never really go beyond that initial role. Ever since Brood War, the hybrid seemed like they'd be a groundbreaking new addition to the universe, and to their credit, they do break some ground. They control Protoss and Terrans, wreak havoc, wipe out worlds, but I can't help but feel like there could have been more to them. They're a combination of the Protoss and the Zerg to create an entirely new being. What would this new race be like? If you mixed a Kala and a Zerg together, could that create a being connected to both the Kala and the hive mind? Would the different consciousnesses be distinct or mixed together? What would that look like? How would they think? Would all of them be inherently malicious? Perhaps it's merely my own expectations not being met. Kinda like Amon. But I think it prudent to compare this to other factions. Starcraft is a series all about them. In the past, the Terrans and Protoss feared each other, but worked together in the end and gained newfound respect for each other. The Conclave painted the Nerazim as evil, only for the so-called heretics to cripple the Swarm and give shelter to their persecutors. Rohana feared the Purifiers, but they showed they were far from the killbots everyone believed them to be. Even the Tal'Darim and Primal Zerg showed complexity beyond just being fanatics or space dinos. So imagine my surprise when the hybrid ended up just being evil. No real complexity, just... Oh, you just want them to turn good. No, I'd like them to have depth. Purely evil characters tend to be pretty forgettable. Why do you think guys like Abathur or Alarak are so highly regarded? Aside from being entertaining, of course.
You think us fools?
Yes, but that is irrelevant.
Apart from being Amon's lapdogs, the hybrid are just here to be stronger enemies. Perhaps that was always the intention. Perhaps they really were just designed to be Amon's enforcers, but if that's the case, it's a shame. Evil comes in many forms. Mengsk isn't the same kind of evil as, say, Abathur, but there's no distinct hybrid characters outside of Mar. And while it plays into Amon's whole shtick of taking away identity, it's a letdown that for all their build-up and potential, the hybrid are just glorified boss units. They have some cool spells, I guess. Mar has a cool voice. Otherwise, D tier. Duran. Our shifty boy first shows up in episode 5, posing as a Confederate resistance fighter. He gives the UED a hand, and they go on their merry quest to destroy the Dominion and conquer the sector.
Gentlemen, I recommend that you launch this attack using the utmost caution.
Duran presents himself as a friendly, knowledgeable fellow with a hint of pragmatism by siding with the UED. But even with his persona, the cracks begin to show.
Surely, Vice Admiral, you don't doubt the tenacity of your own fleet.
Over time, he starts acting sketchier. On Tarsonis, he pushes to destroy the Psi Disruptor rather than use it against the Zerg. And he forgets to call Dagall an Admiral.
Disgraceful.
From the start, both Dagall and Stukov have their reservations about Duran, since he's selling out his fellow Terrans to Earth's government. Ironically, the good Admiral is the one who sides with him when things go south later on. After advising the captain on the invasion of Korhal, Duran screws over the UED by letting the Zerg overrun them, saving Mengsk and Raynor in the process.
Sorry, sir, but it seems your signal's fading out. I couldn't make out that last part.
The obviously fake excuses he gives lead to Stukov going rogue and getting shot before he can reactivate the psi disruptor on Braxis. Now, I already went over some of the issues with his betrayal and Stukov's death in the Kerrigan video. It's more an issue with presentation, given the fact that the player sees all of this, but we're stuck on mute, so we can't actually tell Dugall anything. Just know that Stukov, the captain, and Dugall could have easily resolved all this with one phone call.
But Pi, Duran must have been mind-controlling or influencing Dugall.
Well, maybe. It's open-ended. Could be influence, could be Dugall being terrible at communicating. We'll never know. Though given the later reveal of Duran's power, it does seem a bit odd he doesn't go for Stukov too. Regardless, his allegiance is revealed and he flees with Kerrigan. With his affable but treacherous nature, ambiguity and manipulation were a large part of the original Duran's appeal for me. Like Kerrigan, he was interesting for his ability to play sides while pursuing his own agenda. Not necessarily for shooting lightning beams, but we'll get to that. For the rest of Brood War, Duran continued his work while posing as Kerrigan's lieutenant, where he provided several strategies to deal with the Swarm's foes. He may be a scientist, but he's also a soldier.
The resulting explosion will be the perfect cover for retrieving the matriarch.
Or it could, kill her. That was definitely possible too. As Kerrigan claims victory on Char, Duran slips away unnoticed. On a dark moon, Zeratul finds several Protoss and Zerg captives in stasis, awaiting transformation into the hybrid. Hidden from view, Duran reveals his true nature and allegiance.
I am a servant of a far greater power. A power that has slept for countless ages, and is reflected in the creature within that cell. For I have seeded the hybrid on many, many worlds. You will never find them all before they awaken. And when they do, your universe will be changed. Forever.
I'll hand it to Blizzard. This was a really cool setup back in 1998. I believe they call it mystery box storytelling. For 12 years, we were left wondering, what was inside Duran's box? Who was he really? What master did he serve? And how would the hybrid change the universe? 12 years later, we'd get our answer. Was it a good one? We'll get to that. Duran next appeared as Dr. Remus Narud. Scratch that, Emil Narud. Lime Duran. He poses as head of the Mobius Foundation, which is searching for several Xel'Naga artifacts. Hiring Raynor's gang, they beat up the Tal'Darim for the magic rocks. Kerrigan confronts him and Raynor on Tyrador, where we get some more hints about his identity.
I've seen through your Dr. Narud's pathetic charade.
That Queen of Blades really is quite a nuisance, isn't she?
Narud later shows up in Skyger, breeding more hybrid. Officially, they're Vermensk, but obviously they're Amons. Nevertheless, his plan to fight Kerrigan is to have his hybrid drain her psionically. He spends the rest of the mission spouting generic threats about how the Swarm has outlived its usefulness and we have no hope. He's still smug, I'll give him that. After the battle, Kerrigan and Stukov determined that Narud and the hybrid used the artifact to bring back Amon by collecting energy from the Queen of Blades. Further underground, Narud shouts that Kerrigan knows nothing about the Xel'Naga and shoots lightning at her. Then she shoots lightning back and, Bro, what is it with every character using lightning in Starcraft 2? Like, even Karax gets in on it. Now, some people pointed out that Kerrigan flying makes sense because she has psychic powers. Fair enough. In theory, she could also taunt Mengsk with fart noises because she's a telepath. That doesn't make it any less dumb. As Professor Grant once said, this feels like a Dragon Ball Z fight. Visually, it more resembles a duel from Harry Potter. And not the fun creative one between Voldemort and Dumbledore, I mean the boring tug-of-war ones between him and Harry. I actually like both series, not ruling herself, rest in peace Toriyama. But this is StarCraft, and for me, this feels a little out of place. But it's a matter of taste. Some people might think this tastes fine. I am not some people. Moments like this are symptomatic of the overall approach in StarCraft 2, whereas the original games were generally more grounded. In the sequels, it's a bit more bombastic. Obviously, there'll be fights, it's an RTS, but those were armies clashing. And yes, we did get more fantastical scenes like Tazadar's collision course or the Xel'Naga temple going off, but crashing a ship into your enemy or setting off an ancient super weapon happened in cinematics outside the regular game. It's not the same as having two characters blasting each other with giant beams across the map. Now don't get me wrong, I quite like some of the action scenes in the sequel, such as Kerrigan's Dream and the Protoss invasion of Ire. Props to the teams who worked on them, that feels like StarCraft, just mass armies fighting across worlds. You may have guessed by now that my main issue with Narud is that he's less of a sneaky, infiltrating schemer in the sequels. Instead, he's like Mar, another evil guy who works for Amon, says it's hopeless to beat him, and shoots stuff at you. Some might say he's dropping the subtlety to finally kill Kerrigan. True, probably could have kept some of it. In fairness, I will give Blizzard this much. It's fitting that Stukov is the one who screws Narud over on Skyter, given his previous betrayal and torture of him. I may not love the sequels, but they have their moments and they have their characters. Psst, if y'all vote for Alarak or Abathur next, you'll hear nothing but praise from me. Anyways, Kerrigan confronts Narud, who taunts her that Amon's back. Then he turns into Raynor and drops another magic rock on her. Doesn't work this time. Kerrigan then tries eating him with a Nidus worm, and I know it's possible, but it also looks dumb. Anyway, she punches Narud a bunch, he pulls an IMU before stabbing Kerrigan, who stabs him back, killing his mortal form. Not sure how to feel about Narud these days. A lot less subtle, though that's the overall approach with the sequels, I suppose. He gave some smug taunts, fired a beam at Kerrigan, became Raynor, became Kerrigan, got stabbed. Also, it's really funny that his green form is voiced by Artanis.
Strike the hive while they are in disarray. Today, we will retake what we have lost.
And they sadly didn't call him Duran. I'm gonna have to take off points for that.
Samir Duran.
Never mind. We next see Narud in Legacy's universally well-received epilogue, where it's revealed he's also a Xel'Naga. You know, I'll say this, compared to Amon and Oros, Narud's design at least stands out. It fits given how much smaller and snake-like he is compared to his boss. He's ultimately just second fiddle to the Shadow God, and by this point is relegated to babysitting fake Tassadar. Regardless, Into the Void is actually my favorite epilogue mission. You get to fight alongside the other two races and secure positions while carving a path to Narud himself. And to top it all off, we get the satisfaction of beating the crap out of him with our army before Stukov executes him.
Good night, you son of a bitch.
Cheesy as it is, it's fitting that Narud dies at the hands of a man he betrayed and tortured. So while I ultimately didn't find Narud the most interesting villain in the sequels, and he loses a lot of the subtlety from before, I will hand it to Blizzard that he at least gets two somewhat fitting defeats. Firmly in C tier.
Your newfound strength gives you no advantage here. I have fought and killed Xel'Naga before.
I am Duran.
At last, Mr. Shadow God. It'd be easy for me to just call Amon a flat generic villain who's evil because he's evil. Stick him in FD or call it a day. But in the interest of fairness, let's take a closer look. Amon doesn't appear in person until Wings of Liberty, but his influence is felt retroactively throughout the series, so it's important to go over some of these events. In Episode 2, the Overmind echoes much of his ideology about total control over his subordinates and achieving perfection.
Then shall we be the greatest of creation's children. We shall be perfect.
The goal of assimilating the Protoss is revealed later on to be Amon's purpose for the swarm. By creating the hybrid, he aims to make himself a new body and to spite the Xel'Naga. We'll talk more about that later. Now, I already spoke at length in the Kerrigan video about why I'm not a big fan of Amon being behind the Zerg. TLDR, I liked Mr. Eyeball better when he was just science gone right, and Kerrigan better when she was a hero gone wrong. No need for a bigger bad, people made mistakes, bugs followed their programming. Having some other guy behind it all diminishes their accomplishments. At least for me. Regardless, in Episode 3, Zeratul confirms that the Swarm's origin is the same as the Protoss, the Xel'Naga. The Overmind grew beyond their control, but aimed to finish what they started, the assimilation of all life. The first true hints at Amon's existence start in Dark Origins, where Duran speaks of serving a greater power, one behind the creation of the hybrid that aims to change the galaxy permanently. As I said, this was big. Who was this mysterious master? What did they want? How would they change the universe? Amon finally shows up in the prophecy missions. Zeratul learns that he caused the Swarm's rampage and plans to dominate them if Kerrigan dies. Using the hybrid and the Zerg, Amon is prophesied to end the universe in utter darkness. He wipes out the Protoss, then consumes the Zerg. Wait, do the Protoss still have the Kala in this mission? As mentioned, Amon himself makes it clear that he views the Zerg and Protoss as tools. Not actual people or races, but pieces on a board. Otherwise, the rest of his lines are him gloating about his plan and telling us it's useless to resist. Not the deepest character, but they're building him up. Moving on to Heart of the Swarm, Amon finally gets a name. Fun fact, I used to say it as Amon, like Korra. Now I just say it as Amon, like Starcraft. Nothing to do with the segment, I just thought it was funny. On Char, Isha reminds Kerrigan of her plan to prepare for Amon's return by securing the artifacts. On Xeris, Kerrigan learns the hive mind was created by him to control the Zerg, and that the primal Zerg escaped because they were overlooked. On Skyger, Kerrigan and Stukov determined that the artifact was meant to use energy from the Queen of Blades to resurrect Amon. Narud confirms this, meaning after her pit stop at Core Hall, Kerrigan has to go beat him next. So we're 2/3 of the way through the trilogy. We know Amon's behind the hybrid and the swarm and plan to use them to consume and remake the universe. He views his creations as tools and only values them because they're his possessions. His servant Narud has manipulated the Dominion and Tal'Darim to fuel the hybrid project, and the artifact was used to bring him back with the power stolen from Kerrigan. Now most of this stuff is stuff we've been told about him. The big man himself has been off-screen most of the trilogy so far, though to be fair, he's been dead. So not terrible, but not super interesting so far. Pretty by the books, destroy everything kind of villain. Thankfully, Legacy of the Void would like a word. So how was Amon in the third game? He's finally doing stuff. He takes over the Kala at the start of the game, seizing the Golden Armada for himself. Using Artanis, he slays the Prelate Zeratul and uses Selendis as a puppet, giving Artanis a personal stake in stopping him. Amidst the chaos, the Daelon flee the planet aboard the Ark ship. The first half of the game centers around finding and awakening the Xel'Naga to beat Amon up, allowing us to explore the nature of these mythical beings. Turns out all the tampering with the Protoss and Zerg went against the Xel'Naga's approach of non-interference. They were never meant to ascend as Xel'Naga. Now that's pretty huge. The so-called special races of the galaxy were only special because of Amon's plans. Not that they get much time to process that, because the Xel'Naga are dead, so the heroes switched to finding a way to free the Templar from Amon. All well and good, I actually like that they didn't just have a Xel'Naga to solve all their problems for them. Hope they stick with that. Now, despite his increased presence, Amon still has a bit of a problem. As I mentioned, much of what we learn about Amon is exposition from other characters.
What I cannot understand is why Amon would cast aside his loyal allies so easily.
The dark truth is, Amon wishes no allies, aside from his hybrid.
Now, exposition isn't necessarily bad, but a general rule of thumb is that it's better to show and not tell. In Legacy, it's mostly told by Rohana, and it's a problem that was apparently acknowledged by the writers. Since Mr. Squid is stuck in the void for the entire series, it's hard for the audience to really know what he wants or why he wants it. Many of his scenes consist of him using Rohana as a mouthpiece to tell the protagonists how he's gonna bring order to the galaxy, or taunting them about how their history is a lie and it's pointless to struggle against him and they'll all die.
I offer a gift. Release in oblivion.
He even reveals his plans to Artanis, though that one was a trap at least, I'll give him that. Not the most compelling antagonist. He's no Mengsk Kerrigan, that's for sure. At least they could be entertaining and charismatic at times.
With our enemies left unchecked, who will you turn to for protection?
I'm pretty much the queen bitch of the universe.
And they had style. But Amon's a dark god who does stuff behind the scenes. Now, this wouldn't be too bad if we had a middle management antagonist to talk to, you know, kind of like Darth Vader to the Emperor, the Saruman or Nazgul to Sauron. Someone in the field that Artanis can bounce off of regularly. Hey, there's Narud. Oh, he's dead. Aldarak, he joins our party pretty quickly. What about Malash? Shows up in 4 missions, then dies. And the hybrid are no help. They have even less personality than Malash. In fairness, Legacy of the Void's main focus is uniting the factions resisting Amon and exploring the characters who represent them. But this means that Amon himself doesn't really get that. He's not the focus. Fair enough, it's not his role, but it also means he's not the MVP. I don't play Legacy because of how cool or interesting Amon is. I played for Alarak, obviously. That being said, one interesting aspect of Amon that I've noticed is identity. Loss of identity. We see it in his fixation on total control through the Kala and the hive mind. The lack of complex characterization for the hybrid further compounds this. Likewise, his armies have little personality, merely extensions of his will. Interesting in concept, but in practice you just fight a sea of red minions, while Amon or one of his lackeys occasionally taunts you about his superiority.
Your crusade has failed.
Speaking of which, turning red was a problem as far back as Heart of the Swarm. Since our main enemy was the Dominion, most of the enemies were Red Terrans. Then Legacy of the Void rolls around and there's more Red Terrans, Protoss, and Zerg. In general, there's no direct antagonist to face except for Malash briefly and Amon when he rings us up. Man, they really could have used Niadra for Amon Brood. Regardless, the heroes confront Amon on Ire. There's 2 cool scenes where he messes with Vorazun with some Exorcist stuff and Artanis with the UI. I quite like that, but otherwise, he just spouts more taunts about the Kala being a lie and how the heroes are too late. Also, as ominous as his host form is in the cutscenes, the actual design is,
I thought he'd be taller.
Thankfully, the heroes battle his host form and strike it down before... Wait, we actually don't fight him? Huh. Ironically, while I don't like all the over-the-top action in Starcraft 2, I figured they'd at least give us the satisfaction of blasting this man ourselves. Beating up characters has been a thing since Starcraft 1. In fairness, it's cool to see the Daylon fleet shoot the squid out of him. Left hostless, Amon desperately throws what's left of his minions at Artanis, before the keystone is activated and he's pulled out of the Templar, being thrown back into the void. But they don't stop there, as Kerrigan proposes that they finish him off in the void itself. Smart move, Amon will probably show up again in an expansion if they leave him be. After Oros is freed, he passes on his essence to Kerrigan, who confronts the big bad, and I'm sorry, have I mentioned how much I don't like the Xel'Naga designs? I understand the intention to make them Cthulhu-esque, but in practice they look like blobs. Amon looks like melted ice cream. He looks like he could be a marketable plushie. He looks like a placeholder. He looks like a model whose textures failed to load. He doesn't look powerful or intimidating. He looks ugly as hell. Hold on. Part of Amon's character is how he was allegedly forced to be Xel'Naga, and hates what he is. Yo, if I got uploaded into this garbage, I'd want to wipe out the universe too. Brilliant. Everyone, I've changed my mind. Amon S tier, 10 out of 10 character design. Blizzard, you geniuses, you've done it again. Anyway, the final mission is to kill 7 rocks. Riveting. Interestingly, Amon reveals his past here.
I was forced to become this, just as you were. Torn from everything I knew.
All that murder and conquest was out of spite and self-loathing? Huh, that's actually interesting. I really hope we can explore more of that. Nope. Well, that was Amon. You may have noticed that while I don't like him, I also don't feel as strongly about him as I do about Kerrigan. Perhaps it's the advantage of not being present in the original games. I don't really have an older version to compare him to. Unless you count the Overmind, but they're different characters. The version of Amon that we get, well, I may not like Kerrigan in the sequels, but I at least remember the moments I dislike. Amon, he's just there. For all the mystery behind Duran's master, he doesn't stand out as an antagonist. There's some interesting ideas they float around, but ultimately he's here because he needs to be, a powerful big threat behind most of the bad stuff in the series who forces everyone to unite. Perhaps that's what he was always meant to be, someone who isn't deep, someone who lacks the capacity to change, unlike our good hierarch. It'd be reductive to say he's evil because he's evil. That is the popular image of him. There's motivation and personality there, just had to replay the games to recall. He's self-righteous, manipulative, narcissistic, hypocritical, and petty. Very petty. He was forced to become a Xel'Naga, allegedly, and uphold their infinite cycle. So he set about to break free of that and impose what he believed a perfect universe should be, leading to untold amounts of destruction and death. Ironically, in his attempts to mold that universe, he does exactly what he hated the Xel'Naga for, and accomplishes exactly what he set out to stop. So he has a character, just not one worth remembering. D tier.
You guys all think you're so much better than me!
I'm gonna be honest, I can't fix Amon. It'd be insane to take on the challenge of rewriting him at all. Any changes to him would have massive impacts on the story. Ultimately, I think it more productive to compare Amon to some of our other antagonists. See their strong points compared to him. Mengsk, at least in the original game, is a very real antagonist. He's a revolutionary turned megalomaniac who betrayed his allies.
I will rule this sector or see it burnt to ashes around me.
Yet he presents himself as humanity's savior.
I shall watch over you.
But unlike Amon, he's not an obviously evil monster. Not initially. On the surface, he's charismatic and friendly, offering aid to the likes of the Magistrate and Raynor. Only in private, underneath it all, does he reveal that he's a smug, self-assured control freak.
You're making a terrible mistake. Don't even think to cross me.
He's too proud to admit defeat or failure, and his paranoia ends up being his undoing. But while he may be a crazy, genocidal dictator, at least he got style. I've already gone over why I loved Brood War Kerrigan so much. We watched her fall from grace and descent into sadism and betrayal. We saw her feign change, only to sink deeper and deeper into villainy. She makes things personal by brainwashing Rashikal and having the player kill Phoenix. While Amon guts Zeratul in a cutscene, bro, imagine if we had a segment where we actually had to kill him in-game. Now that would hurt. Brood War Kerrigan owns how horrible she is. She is both despicable and entertaining with everything she does. Also, she may be a backstabbing genocidal murderess, but at least she got style. Amon may play at being God, but the Overmind succeeds because he is one. When he speaks, you feel like it's the will of an ancient hive mind.
Awaken, my child, and embrace the glory that is your birthright.
His eloquent speeches are reminiscent of the Old Testament God.
That is my covenant with all Cerebrits.
As you progress, he even pumps you up in his own buggy way.
For you grow more cunning with each passing battle.
Yeah, I'd serve in his form. Not like that, not like that! And to top it all off, despite being a literal brain, he has the benefit of having an iconic look. The creepy, lidless Sauron eye staring into your soul. Now that is the form of a god. It'd be unfair of me to only bring up older antagonists. I may never love the sequels, but they have things I like. Alarak not only serves as a useful look into the Tal'Darim, but as a great foil for Artanis, being a far more ruthless and cutthroat warrior. He has many of Amon's traits, arrogance, ambition, being red, but he can also be reasonable, wise, and even vulnerable on occasion.
You do not see through the agony of knowing all you believed in is a lie, and that your only solace is found in the destruction of your betrayer.
Even in Nova Covert Ops, he serves as a dangerous frenemy for the titular Ghost, sharing a common goal but also outclassing her, psionically and physically, while caring not for the struggles of the common man. Also, he's funny.
For creatures with such short lifespans, you Terrans are always so eager to die.
And he may be a backstabbing warlord, but at least he's got style. Now, this is just a theory, but I believe Amon doesn't stand out, at least for me, because he doesn't quite go to the same extremes as the other antagonists in the story. He's not nearly as grounded as the likes of Mengsk or personal as Kerrigan. However, he's also not nearly as alien or transcendent as the likes of the Overmind, and in terms of banter, he's certainly no Alarak.
Yes, but that is irrelevant.
He's in a strange middle ground where he's immensely powerful, influential, but also incredibly petty and spiteful. And as a result, the more interesting, extreme personalities drown him out. Also, he's got no style.
Actually, Amon was an S-tier Giga-Chad supervillain who was super memorable.
Alright, enough talking about Amon. I don't know how long I want the series to be. I doubt I'll be able to do every character. I have neither the time nor energy for that. But I don't want every video to be negative. I want to add something positive for once. And as I said, there are elements in the sequels I actually like. So here, choose one of these dudes. Alarak, Donnie, Abathur, you'll hear mostly positive stuff about them. Shoutouts to Gladys Marino, Abby Acrid, Jen Tuong, Michael Phillips, and Mike Pierce for supporting the channel. Feel free to leave a like or dislike, subscribe, or comment below. Maybe Amon truly is an S-tier character worthy of praise. Or maybe he's lower than D-tier. Regardless, thank you for watching.